The wooden platform groaned beneath Claire's boots as she stumbled forward, her thin frame trembling with exhaustion. The early morning sun cast harsh light across the square, illuminating every frayed seam of her plain dress, every tear-streaked mark on her pale cheeks. Townsfolk stood in a loose circle around the auction block, some curious, others indifferent, and a few smirking as if enjoying a cruel game. A young widow, the auctioneer's voice rang out, his words sharp and slicing through the murmurs of the crowd. Educated, knows her letters, her numbers, her housework. Strong back, delicate hands. He paused and glanced at Claire with poorly concealed disdain. But barren. No children. No heirs. The word barren clung to Claire like thorns. It had followed her since the day her late husband's family cast her out, branding her as useless after 2 childless years of marriage. They hadn't cared that it wasn't her fault, that a midwife whispered she had likely been born with a womb too scarred for life to take root. A bitter wind cut through the square, tossing Claire's veil as she struggled to steady her breath. She clenched her fists, nails biting her palms. Stay upright. Don't let them see you break. Let's start the bidding at $5, the auctioneer barked. Silence. A man near the front spat on the ground. $5 for a woman who can't give a man sons? I wouldn't pay 5 cents. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Claire's face burned hotter than the noon sun. $3 then? Who'll give me 3? Another silence. A few women shifted uncomfortably. One old man sneered. She ain't worth the food it'd take to keep her alive. Claire's chest constricted. She wanted to shout, to remind them she was more than a womb, more than a housekeeper to be bartered for. But her voice stayed trapped in her throat, crushed beneath years of shame. Then, from the back of the crowd, a voice spoke. Deep, calm, commanding. I'll take her. The murmurs stopped. Heads turned. A tall figure stepped forward, broad-shouldered, with long black hair tied at the nape and sharp eyes that scanned the auctioneer, then Claire. 6 children trailed behind him like ducklings, their dark eyes peeking out with curiosity from behind his deerskin coat. The Comanche man's presence was magnetic, silencing even the cruelest whispers. He reached into a leather pouch and pulled out a handful of coins, tossing them onto the auctioneer's table with a clink. Paid in full, he said. His voice was soft, but left no room for argument. The auctioneer cleared his throat nervously and nodded. Well, that settles it. She's yours, Mr. Dakota. He glanced at Claire, holding out a weathered hand. You'll come with us. Claire stared at him, her breath catching. There was no judgment in his eyes. No pity either, just quiet resolve. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. And in that moment, the world shifted, though she didn't yet know how much. The wagon creaked as it rolled over uneven dirt roads, the horses' hooves stirring clouds of dust in the warm afternoon air. Claire sat stiffly on the bench beside Dakota, her hands folded tightly in her lap as the 6 children squirmed in the back, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. Every so often, one of them peeked at her with wide, curious eyes. The youngest, a girl with twin braids, boldly stared, her round cheeks smudged with dirt, until Dakota murmured a quiet word that sent her giggling behind her small hands. Claire's stomach churned. The humiliation of the auction clung to her skin like ash. She had been passed over by every man in town, discarded and sold because she could not give life. And yet here she was, riding beside a man she didn't know, a man who didn't flinch at the word barren and who looked at her with neither disgust nor desire. When they reached his homestead, Claire's breath caught. It wasn't what she expected. Instead of a rough shack, a sturdy log cabin stood in a sunlit meadow, smoke curling lazily from the chimney. A small corral held 2 horses, and neat rows of vegetables lined the edge of the clearing. Wildflowers swayed in the breeze, brushing the weathered steps of the porch. This is home, Dakota said simply, pulling the reins to a stop. The children hopped off the wagon, chattering to each other as they ran toward the door. Claire hesitated, unsure if she should follow. Come, Dakota said, his voice gentle but firm. There's work to do and little ones to feed. Inside, the cabin was warm and filled with life. Quilts were draped over handmade chairs, wooden toys littered the floor, and herbs hung drying near the hearth. The air smelled faintly of cedar and baked bread. Claire set her small bag down near the door, her fingers brushing the leather handle one last time, like it was a tether to her old world. "You don't have to fear here," Dakota said, watching her with an unreadable expression. "I didn't bring you for what others wanted. I brought you because they need a woman's kindness." Claire turned to him, her voice low but edged with years of pain. "You know I can't give you more children." Dakota's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but softer than she expected. "I don't need more children. I need the ones I have to grow, with someone who cares. That's all." That night, as the children curled into quilts on the floor, Claire lay awake in the small loft Dakota had given her. The wind rustled through the meadow grass outside. She was far from the world she knew, surrounded by strangers, but for the first time in months, the weight in her chest felt a little lighter. The days fell into rhythm. Claire rose with the sun, learning to knead bread dough beside Dakota's eldest daughter, Ahiv, who was barely 12 but carried herself with quiet maturity. She swept the floors, mended torn shirts, and tended the vegetable patch, her fingers slowly finding their strength again after months of idleness. At first, the children kept their distance. The younger boys stared at her wide-eyed, unsure if she was friend or foe. But little Kiona, bold and curious, broke the ice one afternoon by tugging at Claire's skirt and handing her a carved wooden horse. "For you," she said shyly. Claire knelt, surprised. "Did your papa make this?" Kiona shook her head. "Me." A laugh, small, unpracticed, escaped Claire's lips. She held the toy close. "Then I'll treasure it." Dakota noticed the shift. The children began to laugh more freely, the house filling with a warmth it hadn't known since their mother's passing. In quiet moments, Dakota would watch Claire from across the room. How her hands soothed a crying child, how her voice hummed soft lullabies in a language foreign to the little ones, yet comforting all the same. One evening, after a long day of hauling water and patching a roof leak, Claire sat on the porch, rubbing salve into Dakota's cracked hands. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. "You work too hard," she murmured, massaging the balm into his skin. He glanced at her, his dark eyes steady. "So, do you?" Claire hesitated, her fingers pausing. I don't know why you chose me. You could have had someone younger. Someone whole." "You're whole enough," Dakota said, simply. "For them. For me." Her heart thudded painfully, and she looked away before he could see her tears. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters as rain lashed against the cabin. Inside, the family huddled together, the fire crackling low as Claire wrung out wet blankets. Lightning flashed, illuminating Dakota's sharp profile as he worked to secure the roof. Then a scream. Claire's heart lurched. She turned to see little Nita sprawled on the floor, her tiny head bleeding where she'd fallen. "Dakota!" Claire's voice cracked. She scooped Nita into her arms, pressing a cloth to the wound as panic threatened to swallow her. Dakota rushed in, his strong hands steady even as his eyes betrayed fear. Together, they worked to stop the bleeding. Nita whimpered weakly, her small fingers clutching at Claire's dress. When it was over, when Nita lay asleep in her crib with her wound bandaged, Claire collapsed into a chair, trembling. "I thought I'd lost her," she whispered. Dakota crouched before her, his large hands enveloping hers. "You didn't. You saved her." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Slowly, gently, Dakota drew her into his arms. Claire didn't resist this time. She let herself lean into his strength, the steady beat of his heart grounding her. Summer unfolded like a slow exhale, bringing wildflowers and warm breezes. The meadow bloomed with color, and so did Claire. The children no longer peered at her cautiously. They ran to her, arms outstretched, laughter ringing like bells. One golden evening, Dakota led her to a quiet corner of the meadow. In his hands was a small wooden box. Inside lay a simple silver ring. "You were never mine to buy," he said softly. "You were free the moment I met you. But if you'll have me, Not because you must, but because you choose, I would be honored to call you my wife." Claire's breath hitched, tears welling. "Dakota," she slipped the ring onto her finger, her voice breaking. "Yes." The wedding was small but rich with love. The children scattered wildflowers along the path, and a Comanche elder blessed their union as the sun set over the meadow. Claire walked slowly, hand in hand with Dakota, her heart finally at peace. She wasn't barren. She wasn't broken. She was home.